Good morning, and thank you for the introduction. I'm honored to have the opportunity to present the keynote today. This topic is very important because accurate registration and listing data is essential to public health, and we will share some examples of that today. Before we begin, I want to share a little bit about CDER's Office of Compliance, which is charged with the vital drug registration and listing program, as well as compliance with clinical trial oversight, drug manufacturing requirements, imports, recalls, and the integrity of the drug supply chain. We also protect against counterfeit drugs, ensure labeling compliance, and take actions against health fraud. This includes prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, compounded drugs, and many more. We comprise more than 430 professionals, including scientists, physicians, lawyers, pharmacists, and compliance officers. There are many persistent and emerging risks in each area we regulate, such as fraud and data integrity issues. Confronting each individual risk requires thoughtful planning and the right regulatory approach depending on the circumstances. We have a wide variety of compliance tools available to us within this framework, and deciding how and when to best use them is a continued area of focus for our office. Accurate data is essential to patient safety. The data that you submit is integral to public health efforts, such as planning for drug facility inspections to ensure drugs are manufactured in compliance with the law. Data in the drug registration and listing system, also known as eDRLS, is extremely important when it comes to FDA's work reviewing imported products from abroad. Registration and listing data submitted by an importer is checked against our system, and when it doesn't match, FDA can request additional information. This can help stop potentially harmful products from entering the United States. We also use this data to track reports of adverse events and assign it to a specific drug for follow-up. Your work is important. You are a critical piece in a complex public health picture. For that reason, we ask that you do everything that you can to submit accurate and complete information. This information is more than just a database. Incorrect information can impact public health and put patients at risk. We take this very seriously, as you will hear today, and we do hold companies accountable for their data. So currently, there are more than 144,000 drugs listed with FDA, of which more than half are generic drugs approved under an abbreviated new drug application and over-the-counter drugs. Drugs approved under new drug applications comprise 5% of the listed drugs, and active pharmaceutical ingredients or bulk ingredients comprise about 8%. There are more than 10,600 establishments currently registered with FDA that make these listed products. Owners or operators of drug manufacturing establishments are required to register their establishments with the FDA. The majority of registered establishments are in the United States, approximately 57%. You can see in the upper right corner of this slide a heat map with the distribution of companies registered around the world. The top 5 countries based on the number of sites in the CDER site catalog are in the US, India, China, Germany, and Canada. Our office continually works to improve the data quality found in the FDA's drug registration and listing system. We issue registration reminders to firms, inactivate outdated firm registrations, product listings, and labeler codes, and issue deficiency letters when necessary. In fiscal year 2022, 21,440 drug listings were inactivated due to either not being certified as active or associated with an unregistered manufacturing establishment. Our office also inactivated 1,119 unused labeler codes and issued 212 deficiency letters to firms for inaccurate or incomplete registration and listing data. As I noted before, we also hold companies accountable for their data. We issue warning letters when we determine that a firm has submitted contradictory information between the labeling and electronic files. One of our primary goals, however, is to promote voluntary compliance. the best way to minimize the risk of potentially harmful medicines reaching consumers and patients is to prevent violations of FDA's laws and regulations before they occur. To support these efforts, we hold events such as this one so that we can clearly communicate our expectations to you and other stakeholders. We understand the need to be clear and open about where things stand and being available to answer your questions, so I encourage you to ask your questions today. So now I would like to share with you a few concrete examples of how eDRLS data has impacted public health in the past year and how FDA uses it to address emerging risks. Some products based on their route of administration, such as injectable drugs and ophthalmics, in general can pose a greater risk of harm to users because the routes of administration for these products bypass some of the body's natural defenses. In particular, contaminated ophthalmic products can pose serious risks to patients. This year, we saw major contamination of a non-application ophthalmic product that was contaminated with multi-drug resistant bacteria. An outbreak potentially associated with this product is connected to multiple types of infections, including eye infections. 3 people died, and there have been 8 reports of vision loss and 4 reports of enucleation. The investigation to date has identified artificial tears as a common exposure for many patients. While investigating, our compliance team found that in addition to the firm not ensuring that the drug was sterile, the firm was not including a preservative in their multi-dose presentation. The firm was placed on import alert and voluntarily recalled all products on the market. Registration and listing data played a key role in this effort. When we identify illegally marketed, unapproved drugs and lapses in drug quality that pose potential risks, there are a variety of actions that we can take. It's important to remember that most eye drops are generally marketed over the counter, so FDA must catch issues after the product is sold because we don't have a meaningful opportunity to inspect a manufacturing facility prior to distribution. So on this slide, we have a few examples of ophthalmic compliance actions that we took in 2023. Most recently, in September, we issued warning letters to 8 companies for manufacturing or marketing unapproved ophthalmic products. Eye drops included in the 8 warning letters were indicated for conditions such as pink eye, cataracts, glaucoma, and others. Some of these drops were labeled to contain silver, and some of these companies were also cited for quality issues related to product sterility. We also issued CGMP warning letters to firms making ophthalmic products. We will take action to alert the public about potentially harmful products as well. So as you can see on this slide, we issued an alert about the EzraCare artificial tears products that I mentioned in the previous slide. And in August, we issued an alert about certain eye products that were found to be contaminated with bacteria and fungi after FDA testing revealed contamination in 2 methylsulfonylmethane, or MSM, eye drops. And earlier in 2023, we oversaw a recall by and issued a warning letter to a manufacturer who said that they did not know that eye drops were required to be sterile. They are no longer in production. Lastly, our office worked with a company who identified counterfeit versions of their products sold by major online retailers. As you may know, late last year, numerous countries began reporting incidents of oral liquid drug products such as cough, allergy, analgesic, and antiemetic drug products with confirmed or suspected contamination with high levels of diethylene glycol, DEG, or ethylene glycol, EG. While no contaminated product was found in the United States, the outbreak spanned at least 7 countries and was associated with more than 300 fatalities, mostly in children under the age of 5. We've undertaken extensive actions to investigate and prevent an outbreak in the U.S. eDRLS data was used to email manufacturers about important public health updates, identify selected manufacturers and distributors who use excipients of concern, and to help stop potentially dangerous products from entering the country. DRLS data was also used to help plan inspections. Based on our investigations, we issued 170 records requests to firms we identified using DRLS data. We sent warning letters and implemented import alerts for those who failed to respond to FDA or failed to provide the requested information. So as you can see, we're taking many critical steps to ensure that contaminated product does not enter the U.S. supply chain, and DRLS data plays a vital role. Today, I also want to touch on very important work our office is doing related to the National Drug Code, or NDC. Last year, FDA announced the availability of a proposed rule that is intended to minimize the impact of FDA running out of 10-digit national drug codes, or NDCs. The NDC is the FDA standard for uniquely identifying drugs marketed in the United States. NDCs are currently used across the healthcare system. Changes to the NDC would impact human and animal drug manufacturers, insurers, payers, wholesale distributors, pharmacies, hospitals, healthcare practitioners, federal agencies using the NDC, and many other supply chain stakeholders that use FDA-assigned NDCs. FDA is proposing to change the NDC to 12 digits in length with 3 distinct and consistent segments and 1 uniform format. FDA is proposing to amend our regulations on foreign and domestic establishment registration and listing for drugs, including biological products and animal drugs. This proposed rule will affect drug products that are required to be listed under Section 510 of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act and 21 CFR Part 207. Because the agency is running out of 10-digit NDCs, this rule, if finalized, would provide certainty and predictability to stakeholders by selecting a pre-specified date for an NDC change. The COVID-19 pandemic significantly increased the rate at which NDC codes were issued. One expected benefit of the proposed rule, if finalized, is that the proposed standardized format would facilitate the adoption of a single NDC format by all stakeholders. Such an adoption would eliminate the need to convert NDCs from one of FDA's prescribed formats to a different standardized format used by other sectors of the healthcare industry, for example, healthcare providers and payers. I invite you to tune in to our sessions throughout the workshop and learn more about this important initiative in one of the afternoon presentations. In closing, I want to thank Brenda Stoddard and Ray Ford for graciously hosting this conference for our office. I also want to thank Leila Raju Esfandiari for her work in leading this conference, as well as the presenters on the DRLS team, Vikas Arora, Jose Cabrera, Julian Chun, Troy Q, Pui Huber, Tasneem Hussain, David Mazik, Sujin Park, Yogesh Paruthi, Reggie Samuel, and Lori Simons. I also want to thank Huascar Batista from our Office of Compounding Quality and Compliance and Jason Tu from our Division of User Fee Management in the Office of Management. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you. I appreciate your time and attention today.
Thank you for that great keynote address. This is Ray Ford working with SBIA. This will move us right into our first session of presentations on registering your drug manufacturing establishment using CDER Direct. We'll cover a CDER Direct establishment registration demo using the appropriate business operations and business qualifiers, registrations, renewals, updates, and deregistration, and also U.S. agents and official contacts. Our presenters include Reggie Samuel, Technical Information Specialist, Drug Registration and Listing Branch, Division of Labeling, Registration, and Unapproved Drugs, in the Office of Unapproved Drugs and Labeling Compliance, also known as OUDLC, Office of Compliance, CDER, and Jose Cabrera, Information Technology Specialist, Drug Registration Listing Branch, Division of Labeling, Registration, and Unapproved Drugs, OUDLC. For a complete biography on each presenter today, please refer to our speaker biographies located on the event page for all event details next to the conference agenda. Now, please join me to welcome our first presenter, Reggie Samuel.
Good morning to each one of you joining with us from around the world. My name is Reggie Samuel, and I'm a technical information specialist in the Drug Registration and Listing branch. Today, I have the privilege of showing you how to submit an establishment registration. Today, we'll be learning a couple of things. We'll determine who registers and when they should register. This will also cover who should not submit an establishment registration. Then you will also learn how to create and submit an establishment registration via CDER Direct. So who must register? Any establishment that manufactures, repackages, relabels, or salvages drugs for distribution in the United States must register. So if you perform those physical manufacturing processes, which includes packing and labeling, human drug products, you should submit an establishment registration for that location. Now, then if you don't perform those kinds of business operations on human drug products, which would include private label distributors, then you should not register. A private label distributor may be distributing the drug product under their name and label, but is not involved in the manufacturing process of the drug. Therefore, they should not register as a drug establishment. And that's also spoken about in 21 CFR 207.17. There are other exemptions, and you will find those in 207.13 in the CFR. So be sure to check those out to see if you fall under one of those exemptions. Now, when should you register? When should you submit this establishment registration? If you're a domestic establishment, that registration should be submitted no later than 5 calendar days after beginning your business process. In that case, we will receive that establishment registration before that time. And if you're a foreign establishment outside of the United States, you must submit that establishment registration prior to the drug being imported or offered for import into the United States. Make sure you keep this in mind. It's also spoken about in 207.21. Now let's get into the meat of what we're here for, which is the live demo on CDER Direct on how to submit an establishment registration for the first time. And I'll take you over there into the CDER Direct homepage. This is the landing page for the CDER Direct portal. What you'll do is you'll click on the username, enter that, enter your password, click on I understand, and then log in. Upon doing so, you will then be able to see the submissions page. When you first come in, if you had never created any submissions, this area will be blank. For the sake of this presentation, I do have some submissions already created to help us move along. But for those that are creating your first initial establishment registration, you'll click on Establishment Registration here under Submissions. Then you'll click on Create New / Upload File. Click on the radio button for Create New Establishment Registration using a blank form, and then Continue. This will bring you to this page where you'll have a lot of blank spaces that you'll have to start entering information into. The first thing you'll want to do is change the document type to Establishment Registration, which makes a lot of sense. And then here in the other fields in the header details, that will be automatically populated for you. You don't have to enter any information there. You'll come down here to this section that has the registrant details. Any field in CDER Direct that has a dotted underline, you can click on that field name and it'll allow you to see more help text. And this kind of gives you an idea of what the information this field is looking for that you should enter. In this case, for registrant name, the registrant is the owner or operator of an establishment that manufactures a drug. It's the official contact for the establishment registrations. Now, what you'll enter here is that registrant name. Now, this name isn't the personal name, but the one that, the name of the company that you have. In this case, I'm just going to enter Wonder Pharma, and then the DUNS number associated with this company. I will enter that in, and then I'll continue to fill in this information that's requested regarding the contact information for the registrant. Then, when it's time for me to now add the establishments I want to register, I'll click here on Add Establishment. This information is now what you'll have, the glut of what you'll have to enter. And in doing so, I've already created an establishment registration file that has some of this information entered in. So you don't have to watch me mistype a bunch of letters and numbers. So I'm just going to go there. Let's pretend your eyes are closed and you don't know what's happening. And you're going to magically see all of the information you needed already entered in here. And now you can open your eyes and voila. Here we have information as I've been working furiously in the past 10 seconds to type all this information in. I put in my registrant contact details, and I've also added now 2 establishments. Remember, when you're creating your establishment registration, if you have multiple locations in the US or around the world, you can include all of those establishments that are doing a particular business operation on a human drug product in this one establishment registration SPL. That way it's easier for you to manage. There's not multiple documents you're having to access, but you'll come into this one and you can easily and quickly update, put information in as needed in the future. And I'll get to that updates for registration in another session. For now, this is our initial one, and let's pretend we've just now started doing this initial one. We're entering this information in, and I'm putting in the establishment name and DUNS for my location, and along with this address. You want to ensure that the address that you enter here for the establishment matches exactly the DUNS record for this DUNS number. When you submit this establishment, we will do a validation check to ensure by checking that this DUNS number in the Dun & Bradstreet database matches the establishment address you've entered here. So make sure you do that. If it's not up to date in Dun & Bradstreet, make sure you update it there first, then come and enter the address and submit your registration here. Then you'll provide with us the contact details. This is this contact at the establishment. Someone that we can contact if there are questions or information that need to be aware of. This is the contact information of who we will be able to get in touch with. Enter that here. If it's the same as what's above, you can click on this little radio button and it'll automatically, if the same information for the establishment contact is the same as the registrant contact information, you click this radio button and that'll automatically bring over the information from the registrant. Then you have the business operations. Here, you'll select the business operations that are taking place at this particular location, this specific one. Enter that information in. Tell us the kind of product it is. Is it an OTC product produced under a monograph? Is it a prescription drug product? Or is it an OTC product not produced under a monograph? Let us know that information here and then click Save. And, I didn't pick one. Let's pick this one. And you'll have this information all here. Once you've completed doing that, you're going to click on Save Establishment, and that'll save that information. I've already done that before, so I'm just going to move on. Now, let's say I have a second establishment that's outside of the United States, and I've entered the information now for that particular establishment. Once the system detects that the country is something not other than the United States, this information here is then going to become mandatory, as that's U.S. agent information. This would be the name of your U.S. agent, the company that we can get in contact with here in the United States. Fortunately, I have a wonderful U.S. agent, and that agent has a DUNS number. Yes, U.S. agents that you elect must have a DUNS number, so make sure they're registered with Dun & Bradstreet. Along with that, you'll also then see a new section for importers. Here's where you can add multiple importers for products that for the products that you're shipping into the United States, and provide with us, again, they have to have a DUNS number as well, their DUNS number and contact information. Now, once I've done all this, I would click on Save Establishment. I've already done that, so this is already saved. And I'd go here, and then I would click on Submit SPL. Now, when I click on this, there's going to be an error because we're in the pre-production environment, and it's going to ask me for the FEI. Oh, and I should also mention that this field for FEI, you can leave it blank in your initial registration because this is the number that will be assigned by the FDA District Monitor after you've submitted your establishment registration. So you won't have it in the beginning, so you can leave that field blank. However, in any subsequent updates to your registration, you should have that FEI number by then. Usually it takes up to 90 days, it's usually less than that, and you would enter that information in here. But in your initial one, it will be left blank. Because I've done this before, I'm going to get an error when I click Submit SPL. Let's pretend I clicked on Submit SPL. And when I do that, I'll then get a status that says awaiting acceptance. And I'll show you that here after clicking on Return. So after clicking on Submit SPL, you can see now that I'm in awaiting acceptance status right here. This means that the submission is now going through our validation process, and we need to wait usually up to 10 minutes or less for this status to change to either submission failed or submission accepted. If it comes back as submission failed, it just means that maybe we missed something, or the address that you enter for the establishment is not correct. You just have to update that, make sure it's correct, and click Submit again. What we want to see at some point is this thing called Submission Accepted. Once it says Submission Accepted, that status changed from awaiting acceptance to Submission Accepted, then we know that the FDA has successfully received my establishment registration. And once that's been received by FDA, after 1 to 2 business days, your establishment name and address information will appear on the drug establishment's current registration site. That site is where you'll be able to provide to customers, to show to customers that your firm is currently registered. Now, after you've submitted this establishment registration, you're maybe hoping to get a nice certificate you can paste on your wall and show all your colleagues of the great work you've done. But unfortunately, we do not provide any kind of registration certificate. But as I mentioned in my presentation, you will be able to check if you're currently registered on the Drug Establishment Current Registration site. And we also do not endorse any registration certificate. In fact, you may be violating certain laws if you provide an FDA registration certificate. And maybe you've had one of these that I'm showing on the screen right now, but these are not endorsed by the FDA in any way. So please keep that in mind. If you'd like to get an email from us, please ensure that you just check the Drug Establishment Current Registration site, and if your firm is there, you can provide that to customers to show that your firm is currently registered with the FDA. Now, a challenge question for us to consider for today. Who should not register as a drug establishment? A, repackagers, B, private label distributors, C, contract manufacturers, or D, manufacturers? The correct answer is B, private label distributors, as we talked about in the very beginning of our presentation today. And that's because establishments are those that perform a business process, a manufacturing process, which includes packing and labeling on a human drug product. And private label distributors would not fall under that. So a quick summary for us today. Make sure you register on time. It's easy and it just takes a few clicks via CDER Direct, and you can have it done in no time. And remember that you can manage multiple establishment locations on one establishment registration. You don't need to create multiple establishment registrations in order to manage your various locations throughout the United States or around the world. it can be managed through one establishment registration, SPL. Ensure that you always keep your DUNS information up to date via DNB. Contact them if something has changed, an address, a name change, those kinds of things. Make sure it's first done with DUNS, and then you can come update that information in your establishment registration. Finally, remember that if you are solely a private label distributor, this establishment registration SPL would not apply to you. Thank you for registering on time, and thank you for staying in compliance. Now my colleague will talk to us about how to select the appropriate business operations in your establishment registration.
Hello, my name is Jose Cabrera. I am a technical information specialist with the Drug Registrations and Listing Branch. Today, I will be giving you a presentation on using the appropriate business operations and business qualifiers in CDER Direct. Our agenda includes business operations, operation qualifier, appropriate combinations, definitions, and challenge questions. Upon completion of this presentation, you should be able to describe the relationship between business operation and operation qualifier, define the appropriate combinations, and identify your establishment business operations and qualifiers. Business operations. Registration SPLs are data elements which describe the type of manufacturing activity performed at a facility. Facilities performing multiple operations should list all operations in the SPL. Your business operations must accurately reflect what functions the facility performs. This includes certain statutory fees, inspection planning, drug volume reporting requirements and compliance, and automated validations. A labeler code data element which describes best the type of distribution activity for the labeler. Labelers performing multiple operations, including distribution, should list all operations in the SPL. Again, business operations must accurately reflect what functions the labeler performs, such as rejection of labeler code requests to FDA or automated validations. Here is a list of business operations that you can find directly on our website at www.fda.gov. Business operation qualifiers. These are data elements used in conjunction with each business operation. The operation qualifier describes in detail the business operation or product type. This must be provided for all registration and labeler code SPLs. Here is a list of business operation qualifiers which can be found on our website www.fda.gov. Appropriate combinations. Please note not all business operations or operation qualifiers are appropriate for establishment registration and drug listing under Section 510 of the Food and Drug Cosmetic Act. Available options depends on the submission tools, but in CDER Direct, you will only have the applicable list in the dropdown. If you choose the incorrect business operation or operation qualifier, this can lead to automated validation errors. Definitions. Certain terms are defined under Section 510 of the Food and Drug Cosmetic Act and Part 207 of 21 Code of Federal Regulations. Some definitions are included in the NCI thesaurus. The terms pack and label were created for entities that perform the packaging and labeling part of the manufacturing process under contract. Here is our first challenge question. A foreign establishment has registered in CDER Direct as an API manufacturer. The establishment develops human prescription drugs. What will the business operation be? The answer would be API manufacturer. The business operation qualifier will be manufactures human prescription drug products. Business operations must accurately reflect what functions the facility performs, such as A. Assesses certain statutory fees, B. Inspection planning, C. Access drug volume reporting requirements and compliance, D. Automated validations, or E. All of the above. The correct answer is E, all of the above.
Thank you so much for that presentation on the business operations. It's me again, Reggie Samuel, and I'll be continuing with this presentation regarding registration renewal, updates, and deregistration. Some of the things we'll learn in this presentation is to determine when to update your establishment registration and how to create and submit an updated establishment registration via CDER Direct. So when should you update your registration? Well, if you're seeking to renew your registration for the upcoming calendar year, you should submit that registration renewal between October 1 and December 31. So let's say I will have a registration and it's September 30, 2023, and I submit an updated establishment registration. Well, then any establishment in that registration SPL will only be current until 12/31/2023. If I had just waited one day until October 1, 2023 to submit that updated registration renewal, I would then have all establishments in that registration current through 12/31/2024. So when you submit between that October 1 and December 31 timeframe, it then allows any establishments in that submission to be current through December 31st of the following calendar year. Expedited updates should be provided within 30 days of a change. Those include closing or selling an establishment, and you would do that by submitting in a deregistration or out of business notification. I'll get to that in the next slide. Or if you're changing an establishment's name or physical address, that information should be updated within 30 days of that change. Or if you're changing the name, mailing address, telephone number, or email address of the official contact or the U.S. agent, ensure that those changes are submitted within 30 days of that change. So how do I let the FDA know what is going on with my registration? Well, we have certain document types built for these types of changes, and we'll go over them. The first one is the establishment registration. This is the document type you'll use in an initial establishment registration, along with any updates to a registration that you're trying to keep current. You would use the document type establishment registration. We also have the no change notification. This is basically the document type that is only available between October 1st and December 31st. It's kind of a quick way to be able to re-register establishments in your establishment registration and letting us know that there's no changes that for any of those establishments, no changes in business operations, no changes in contact information, no changes in address, and you could submit this no change notification to renew your establishments. Remember, only available between October 1st and December 31st for this document type. Next, you have the establishment deregistration. If you submit this one, all establishments within that registration SPL will be deregistered. Now, this would mean to us that all of those establishments are no longer manufacturing human drug products. It doesn't necessarily mean that the business is out of business. The out of business notification is similar to the deregistration, but it kind of goes a step further in saying, hey, this facility and these establishments are out of business and not operating. Not simply that they're no longer producing human drug products. So let's get into the live demo now on CDER Direct and see how we can update information regarding our registration or to renew it or to deregister. We'll be using there on the Direct website, and on the next slide, we'll go straight to the landing page. After I've logged into my CDER Direct account and I'm brought here to the CDER Direct landing page, I'll then suggest to you to click on Establishment Registration. The reason to do that is in case you had other submissions that you had here, like product listings and labeler code requests, it may be difficult to find the exact submission you're looking for. If you click on an establishment registration, it allows you to only see establishment registrations you have submitted. Now, what we'll do here is find the establishment registration that we want to update in some way, whether it's for a renewal or whether it's I want to deregister or it's I need to update information associated with the establishment. What I'll do is in every situation is I will click on submission accepted for that SPL, and then I'm going to click on create new version. When I click on create new version, that kind of unlocks the SPL so I can make updates for it. What you won't need to do is update any information that's in the set ID, root ID, version number, effective date. It will automatically update the version number by 1, keep the set ID the same, and change the root ID for you, all things that are required. So you don't have to do anything there. What we'll do now is if we're wanting to re-register or update information regarding this establishment registration SPL, such as address information or business operations or a new U.S. agent, I'm going to keep the document type as establishment registration. And what I'll do is I'll come here and let's say the contact email for my registrant has actually changed and it's no longer reggie@fda.hhs.gov. It has changed to samuel@fda.hhs.gov. And the phone number has also now been updated because our phone system was updated. And now the number is 3344, not 5544. And I would then be able to then review here by clicking on the edit tool. That's that pencil and notepad. And if there is information that needs to be updated, such as the business operations that we are doing, let's say we have added a business operation for manufacturing human over-the-counter drug products that aren't produced under a drug application or under a monograph, and I'll click Save. I've updated this, and once I've done that, I'll click on Save Establishment. Once I do all of this and I've had my information updated, I just click on Submit SPL, and bada bing, bada boom, that's all you had to do. If there was no update, you could choose a no change notification. It's not going to appear here right now because it's not October 1 yet. You could submit that, but I always suggest to firms, go ahead and just keep an establishment registration. Go ahead and just check this information that it is correct, and then click submit. Even if there were no changes, once you receive that and we see that it's after October 1st and before December 31st, that will then allow this registration to be current through December 31 of the following calendar year. Now, if you wanted to tell us that you're deregistering, if you submit this as establishment deregistration, what will end up happening is all the information will go away. But the way you need to kind of think about it is that all the establishments that were listed in this establishment registration will all be deregistered, not just one of them, all of them. So if that's what you're intending to do, you just change this document type to deregistration and click Submit SPL, and all of them will be deregistered. The same thing goes for an out of business notification. You do this, change document type, all the establishments associated with this registration will be told to us that they're out of business. However, what if you just want to deregister one out of many establishments? Well, in that case, all you need to do is go to the establishment that you no longer want to have registered with the FDA, click on the edit tool, and just delete establishment. So just that one particular establishment, or less than all of them, you would delete. If you had 5 of them, delete 4 of them, and that to us would then tell us that you're wanting to deregister that establishment, like I did here. So now the only one is remaining is my Wonder Pharma, not Wonder Pharma, not the other Wonder Pharma that I had. Here means that only this one is going to continue to be registered, and the other ones will be deregistered. And once I've done that, I'll click on Submit SPL. And when you do that, kind of the same process goes as what I showed you in the previous time for the registration. You'll have a status that'll go through validation. Hopefully it'll be submission accepted. And if it is, that means that we've received that SPL into our system. One thing I should note is that Submit SPL is the only one that allows the submission to actually be accepted by the FDA. If you click on Save as Draft, that's just a way of saying, hey, I didn't get through the whole thing, I'll come back to it later. You can save it as a draft, come back later, and enter the new information that you needed that you didn't have before. And then Save and Validate, what that allows you to do is run the submission through the validation process only, so you can see if there are any errors. However, clicking on this will not actually submit it to the FDA for final acceptance. It is only for it to run through the validation process. And then if it has passed validation, you'd have to come back into the submission and then click on Submit SPL. But clicking on this kind of is a quicker way to run the validation to see if you have any errors. Now let's get into our challenge question for this presentation. If I submitted my establishment re-registration on September 30, 2023, until what date is my registration current? Is it A, October 1, 2023, B, September 30, 2024, C, December 31, 2023, or D, December 31, 2024? The correct answer is C, December 31, 2023. Remember, if you submit your registration prior to October 1st, then your registration is only current until December 31 of the current calendar year. When you submit the registration between October 1 and December 31, then your registration is current until December 31 of the following calendar year. Thank you for re-registering and deregistering on time. I hope that this has been helpful to you. And now we'll head over and have my colleague tell you more about U.S. agents.
Hello, my name is Jose Cabrera. I am a technical information specialist from the Drug Registrations and Listings branch. Today, I will be giving you a presentation on U.S. agents and official contacts. Our agenda includes the U.S. agent requirements, official contacts, U.S. agent verification, next steps, adverse actions, and useful tips. Upon completion of this presentation, you will be able to describe the requirements of a U.S. agent and official contact, comprehend verification requirements, and identify adverse actions. For the U.S. agent requirements, it states as follows. Any foreign establishment engaged in the manufacturing, preparation, propagation, compounding, or processing of a drug imported into the United States must identify a United States agent for the establishment outlined in 21 CFR subsection 207.69b. Registrants of foreign establishments subject to this part must designate a single United States agent. The United States agent must reside or maintain a place of business in the United States and may not be a mailbox, answering machine or service, or other place where a person acting as the United States agent is not physically present. The U.S. agent is required to respond to questions concerning those drugs that are imported or offered for import to the United States, assist FDA in scheduling inspections, review, disseminating, routing, and responding to all communications from FDA, including emergency communications. If for some reason FDA is unable to contact the foreign registrant directly or expeditiously, FDA may provide the information or documents to the United States agent. FDA providing information and or documents to the United States agent is equivalent to providing the same information and or document to the foreign registrant. The official contact. Registrants subject to the registration requirements of 21 CFR Part 207 must designate an official contact for each establishment. This contact is responsible for ensuring the accuracy of registration and listing information, and reviewing, disseminating, routing, and responding to all communications from FDA, including emergency communications. The FDA may contact U.S. agents for new labeler code assignments, registration and listing deficiencies, among other reasons. If we have reason to believe the U.S. agent information on the labeler code or registration is not accurate, we may open a compliance case and send a deficiency letter. U.S. agent data is published online within our registration database on our website under the Drug Establishment Current Registration site. It is available in a downloadable file or a zip format. FDA has been contacted about some unauthorized use. Here's an example of a U.S. agent deficiency letter. If you are a new U.S. agent, please ensure that you have updated your labeler code SPL and your registration SPL to reflect the most updated information. If you no longer manufacture or import drugs for U.S. commercial distribution, please deregister with FDA, delist your drugs, and inactivate your labeler code. Drug listing and labeler code inactivations can have adverse actions if the appropriate actions are not taken. FDA-initiated inactivation can only be reversed by FDA. Industry-initiated labeler code inactivation can be reversed by industry if or when manufacturing and importing drugs resume. Here are some useful tips. A change in U.S. agent should be reported through labeler code SPL and/or registration SPL. U.S. agents must assume all responsibilities outlined in 21 CFR subsection 207.69b. The official contact and U.S. agent are different entities. The U.S. agent is based in the U.S. and official contact is responsible for the establishment communicating with FDA. Do not ignore deficiency or verification letters. Challenge question. You have a drug establishment that develops hand sanitizer located in Tokyo, Japan. You want to import products into the United States. What CFR is the requirements listed under for U.S. agent? The answer is A, 21 CFR subsection 207.69b. My drug establishment has a new U.S. agent. What do I need to do? The answer is C, update your labeler and registration SPL. Here are some references for your use to 207.69, the requirements for an official contact and a U.S. agent.
Thank you for the great presentations. Moving into our next presentation, it will cover the following: requesting a labeler code from FDA with a demonstration of CDER Direct Labeler Code Request. And then we'll find out who will be assigned a labeler code and who won't. We'll also learn how a labeler code may be inactivated and reactivated. And finally, we'll learn about updates, mergers, and acquisitions. Our presenters include Lieutenant Commander Soo-Jen Park, Regulatory Officer, Drug Registration and Listing Branch, Division of Labeling, Registration and Unapproved Drugs, OUDLC. Laurie Simons, Technical Information Specialist, Drug Registration Listing Branch, Division of Labeling, Registration and Unapproved Drugs, OUDLC. And Pui Huber, Technical Information Specialist, also in the Drug Registration Listing Branch, Division of Labeling, Registration and Unapproved Drugs, OUDLC. Please join me to welcome our first presenter, Lieutenant Commander Park.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Commander Soo-Jen Park, and I am here to do a live demonstration of labeler code request using CDER Direct. Here are the learning objectives for this session. We will log into CDER Direct to create, complete, and submit NDC and RIC labeler code SPL, as well as confirm labeler code assignment. Now let's do a quick review of the National Drug Code, or NDC number. Each product listed is assigned a unique 10-digit, 3-segmented number. It identifies the labeler, product, and package size. The first segment is known as the labeler code, and this is assigned by the FDA. A labeler is any firm that manufactures drug products, which includes repackers, or a company that distributes the product under its own name. The second segment is the product code, which identifies a specific drug and its strength. The third segment is the package code, and it identifies package size, type, and quantity. Now, both product and package codes are assigned by the firm or the manufacturer, and the labeler code is assigned by FDA. This slide summarizes information I just shared about the labeler code. Just want to mention that the labeler code request must be submitted when first introducing a product into commercial distribution, which is 5 days within going into the market, and you should submit and complete your labeler code request prior to drug listing. And if you do not have to list any drugs with FDA, you should not apply for a labeler code. Before we log into CDER Direct for the live demonstration, I'd like to mention that there are 2 labeler code document types. First one is the NDC NREC labeler code request, and this document type is used to request and complete the labeler code process, as well as updating labeler code contact information. And the second type is the NDC labeler code inactivation due to business change, out of business, or company merger and acquisitions. And this topic will be covered later in this session. And now we will go into the live demo of labeler code request using CDER Direct to see how we can request a labeler code to complete the whole process and update the labeler code contact information, as well as confirming labeler code assignment. You can log into CDER Direct using the link provided here. And on the next slide, we will start from the landing page of CDER Direct. Now, to create a labeler code request, under Submissions, click on NDC Labeler Code Request. Then click Create New or Upload File. And when you click on that, a pop-up screen with some helpful information will appear. When requesting a labeler code, it is preferable to wait until you have a product to list before you request a labeler code, and that it can take up to 21 business days to process a labeler code. In addition, if an assigned labeler code is not used to list a drug, it will be automatically inactivated after 24 months. So since we are creating a new labeler code, we're just going to hit OK. And you have 2 options to choose from to create a new labeler code. You can create a new NDC labeler code request using a blank form, or you can select to import an existing NDC labeler code request SPL. If you have used a different application in the past, you can import an existing SPL using the second option. We will use the first option to request a new labeler code. So we're going to click the first option and hit Continue. Under Header Details, you have 2 document types, NDC Labeler Code Request and NDC Labeler Code Inactivation. We are going to select NDC Labeler Code Request from the drop-down menu. Next field is Set ID, and it is what the FDA uses to link all submissions over time. So when you are making updates after initial submission, you have to use the exact same set ID to link all submissions. Next is the root ID, and this is also known as the document ID, which is unique for every submission. Now the version number will default to 1 since this is a new submission. And effective date provides a date reference to the SPL version. So next, we are going to enter the labeler details. You're going to enter labeler name and DUNS number, and make sure to leave the labeler code field blank since we are requesting a new labeler code. Just want to mention that if you have any questions about any of the required fields which are marked with a red asterisk, you can simply click on it, and a pop-up screen will show up with some helpful hints on what you are supposed to include for that field. So for example, if you click on labeler code, the helpful hints will says, if you are requesting a labeler code, leave this field blank. I'm going to close this out, and you're going to continue to complete the labeler details section by entering labeler contact details as well as the labeler contact address. Now the next section is additional labeler details. Although this section is optional, however, we suggest that you enter the information to expedite the process of your request. If you choose not to complete the additional labeler details section, then you will receive an email from us to verify physical address, DUNS number, as well as business operations. So in order to expedite the process, we highly encourage you to complete this section. If the address of the firm requesting the labeler code is different, then you can enter that information here. Or if it's the same, then you can check the box that says same as labeler contact address. So you can click this, or if I unclick it, and then if the address is the same, then I can click on this box and it's going to auto-populate. And if the address is outside of the United States, then let's say it's in Taiwan, then you'll have the option to put in the US agent's information. So we're going to go back to the United States, and I'm going to select the box to say that the address is same as labeler contact address. Now, lastly, you can enter the business operations by clicking on Add Business Operation and select appropriate business operation from the drop-down menu. So when you click on this, you're going to see a whole bunch of business operations that you can choose from. So you select the appropriate one, and then you can also select the qualifier and save. You also can add multiple business operations. So if at this particular address, they're also performing analysis, then you can also add that as well. Now, once you are ready, you can submit the SPL by clicking on Submit SPL. Also, you can save this SPL as draft if you're not ready to complete the process, or you can save and validate to make sure there are no errors with your submission. So once you have submitted the SPL, you should find your submission here with a status of awaiting acceptance. An email will be sent to the contact email of the account of status change. So if there are any validation errors, then you will see validation failure under status. If it successfully passes, then passes validation, then the status will indicate submission accepted, like this one here. Once the labeler code is assigned to your company, FDA will send an email to the point of contact listed on the labeler code request with the assigned labeler code number. So once you receive this email, you are required to confirm the labeler code. Unless you confirm the labeler code, you won't be able to submit a drug listing under that labeler code number. So our next step is to log back into CDER Direct to confirm labeler code assignment. So in order to confirm the labeler code assignment, log back into your CDER Direct account. And once you're logged in, open the previously submitted and accepted labeler code request file, which is the one right here. Then create a new version. Once you click on that, you can go to the field for the labeler code and enter the labeler code number that's been assigned to your company. So you can go down to labeler details, and here you can enter in the labeler code number that was emailed to you. If there are any changes to the labeler code, such as contact name or address, you can update that information here. So if you have, let's say, different contact name for your labeler code, you can update that information right here. And you can either save as draft or submit this SPL. I hope this live demonstration can help with your future labeler code submissions. While everything we discussed is relevant and important, I'd like to close my presentation with a short summary. If you do not have to list any drugs with FDA, you do not need to apply for a labeler code. Labeler codes that are not used by listing a drug product are automatically inactivated after 24 months. So you should only apply for labeler code when you are ready to list a product so that you can eliminate the whole process of having to go through this entire steps that we went through today. And anytime you have changes to labeler code information, whether it's contact person's name or address or phone number, labeler code information must be updated within 30 calendar days after any changes are made. On the technical side, to make any updates to the labeler code, make sure to use the original set ID used to request the labeler code. Okay, now let's test your knowledge. Challenge question number 1, true or false? Labelers may be registered manufacturing facilities or private label distributors such as applicants. The answer is A, true. Your second question. Labeler code information must be updated within how many calendar days after any changes occur? A, 14 days, B, 90 days, C, 30 days, D, never. The correct answer is C, 30 calendar days. This concludes my presentation. Thank you all again for joining us this morning.
Good morning. My name is Lori Simons, and I am a Technical Information Specialist in the Drug Registration and Listing Branch within OUDLC at FDA. Today, I want to talk about who will be assigned a labeler code and who won't. After participating in this session, attendees should be able to define each segment of a labeler code, describe when a labeler code must be requested, and explain the situations for who needs to apply. Before we talk more about assigning labeler codes, let's first review a few things. A labeler code is part of a National Drug Code Number, or NDC. There are 3 segments of an NDC. The first segment is the labeler code that identifies the company and is assigned by FDA. The next segments are the product code, which identifies the dosage and strength of a product, and the package code, which identifies the package type or size. Both the product code and package code are proposed by the labeler. A labeler code is only used for generating NDC numbers for drug products. Now that we know what a labeler code is, let's discuss when it is requested. A labeler code should be requested by a company for a drug listing. They must submit the request to FDA within 5 days of going into commercial distribution, as well as prior to listing the drug. Please note that, generally speaking, if you do not have any drugs to list with FDA, you do not need to apply for a labeler code. Also note, an assigned labeler code that does not have any NDCs listed with FDA within 24 months will be automatically inactivated. Now that we know when to request a labeler code, let's review who needs to request it. As listed in Part 207, each person who engages in manufacturing, repacking, relabeling, or private label distribution of a drug subject to listing under this part must apply for an NDC labeler code. So a company that has drugs to list with FDA will need to apply for a labeler code. If a company has more than one manufacturing establishment under the same ownership, that company is not required to apply for a different labeler code for each establishment. This is because the labeler code identifies a company marketing a product, not the site itself. Also keep in mind that a DUNS number is site-specific, while a labeler code is company-specific. Now that we know who needs a labeler code, we should talk about who does not need one. As I mentioned earlier, if you do not have any drugs to list with FDA, or you are an application holder or sponsor and are not a manufacturer or PLD for the drug, you do not need to apply for a labeler code. This also means that if you do not have any drugs to list with FDA, but apply for a labeler code anyway, the request will be rejected. In addition to that, there are other reasons your labeler code request is rejected, such as your company has already been assigned a labeler code, or your labeler code was automatically inactivated. The steps for reactivation will be covered by our next presenter. Additional reasons may be the information in the submission does not match the information in the Dun & Bradstreet database, or perhaps you are a veterinarian drug manufacturer or distributor, since there is a separate place to submit an NDC labeler code request in the Center for Veterinary Medicine, CVM. Now that we've reviewed the what, when, and who for labeler code assignment, let's see what we remember from today. Challenge question 1 says, if a company has 3 establishments, how many labeler codes do they need? Is the answer A, 1 labeler code, B, 2 labeler codes, or C, 3 labeler codes, 1 for each site? Take a moment to consider which answer you think is correct. The answer is A, 1 labeler code. This may be confusing since the question says the company has 3 establishments, but if you remember from earlier, if a company has more than one manufacturing establishment under the same ownership, that company is not required to apply for a different labeler code for each establishment, because a labeler code is company-specific. Challenge question 2 says, application holders or sponsors that perform no manufacturing process are required to obtain a labeler code. Is the answer A, no, entities that do not manufacture any drugs should not be assigned a labeler code. B, yes, all applicants must be assigned a labeler code. Or C, it depends. If an applicant is also the PLD, then a labeler code must be assigned. Take a moment to consider which answer you think is correct. The answer is C, it depends. If an applicant is also the PLD, then a labeler code must be assigned. Remember, if you do not have any drugs to list with FDA, you do not need to apply for a labeler code. For more information, here is the link to FDA's Electronic Drug Registration and Listing Instructions website. To contact the Drug Registration and Listing branch, please send us an email at eDRLS@fda.hhs.gov. To sum up what we've covered, just remember the following. An NDC number has 3 segments: the labeler code, product code, and package code. If you do not have any drugs to list with FDA, you do not need to apply for a labeler code. Labeler codes not used for drug listing or obtained through false information submitted to FDA can be inactivated. And lastly, a labeler code is company specific. I hope this section helped review labeler code assignment. Questions will be answered in our live Q&A segment at the end of this session. With the information and resources for the what, when, and who, you can now more confidently request a labeler code. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pui Huber. I'm a Technical Information Specialist with the Office of Compliance in Drug Registration and Listing Branch. Now that we've learned about the labeler code request process, let's shift our focus to the labeler code inactivation and reactivation process. The primary goal of this presentation is to help you understand the labeler code verification, inactivation, and reactivation process. In addition to this, we'll focus on differentiating between FDA and industry-initiated labeler code inactivation and walk through the steps to reactivate an FDA-initiated labeler code. The purpose of requesting a labeler code is to list drugs, prescription or OTC, that are manufactured or distributed in the United States. If your company doesn't have to list any drugs with the FDA, applying for a labeler code may not be necessary. Specifically, drug sponsors or application holders not involved in drug manufacturing, processing, or marketing may not require a labeler code. Labeler codes that are not used for listing a drug product will be automatically inactivated after 24 months. If a labeler code hasn't been assigned by the FDA, or if it was obtained through providing false information to the FDA, there's a possibility it could be inactivated, and this can happen without prior notice. Now let's talk about what happens before the FDA initiates the inactivation of labeler codes that haven't been used in any drug listing. If your labeler code falls into this category, the FDA will send an email to the point of contact associated with that labeler code assignment. This email serves as a notification letting you know that the labeler code inactivation will be initiated in 30 days from the date of the email. So what's the action required on your end to prevent inactivation? Well, you have two options. You can either list a product associated with the labeler code within that 30-day period, or if you have a valid reason for not listing any products, you may provide that reason to the FDA. This step is important to ensure that your labeler code remains active and compliant. This is an example of what the verification email looks like. Since the FDA relies on the contact information provided in the labeler code request for any official communication regarding listing or labeler code matters, it is essential that any changes, such as the physical address or email, are promptly updated. In the verification email response, we request that you respond within 30 days of receiving it to confirm your ongoing need for this labeler code. If you no longer manufacture or distribute products, please indicate this in your response. And if you believe you still require an active labeler code, provide a reason. For example, if you have a product with a pending NDA or ANDA, please include this information in your response. eDRLS will review the provided information accordingly. As mentioned earlier, if a labeler code has no listed products for 2 years, it receives a 30-day prior notification of inactivation. Without a response, the labeler code is inactivated. And this is an example of an inactivation letter. In the email, you'll notice that we also provide information on the process for reactivating a labeler code. Please note that only the FDA can reactivate an FDA-initiated labeler code inactivation. To begin the reactivation process, please email us at eDRLS@fda.hhs.gov with the required information, drug name, active ingredients, strength, labeling, anticipated start marketing date, the intended NDC National Drug Code for the product, and this information will undergo a review by eDRLS to determine whether the labeler code should be reactivated. So once again, this is the process for reactivating FDA-initiated inactivation. This next process, we will go over industry-initiated labeler code inactivation. There are various situations in which industry-initiated labeler code inactivations can occur. These include a company going out of business, significant changes in business operations, such as mergers or acquisition events, non-approval of a pending FDA application. In any of these scenarios, a company may choose to initiate the inactivation of their labeler code. To inactivate a labeler code, once you log into the CDER Direct account, as you've seen earlier in the presentations, you can log in and open the previously submitted and accepted labeler code request. Next, you will click on Create New Version. The next step is to change the document type from NDC labeler code request to NDC labeler code inactivation. And you can click Submit SPL when you're ready. Regarding industry-initiated inactivation and reactivation, reactivation is possible using only the same set ID. Industry can only reactivate the same labeler code that it had previously inactivated using that same set ID. Now that we've covered the fundamentals of labeler code inactivation and reactivation, let's put our understanding to the test with some challenge questions. The first one is, what happens if a labeler code does not have any products listed for 2 years? A, it will be automatically reactivated by the FDA. B, it will be permanently inactivated by the FDA. Or C, it will receive a notification 30 days prior to inactivation. Or D, it will be transferred to a different regulatory agency. And the answer is C, it will receive a notification 30 days prior to inactivation. I'm sure you all got that correct. Our second challenge question is, who has the authority to reactivate an industry-initiated inactivated labeler code? A, FDA, B, industry, both A and B, or D, regulatory agencies? The answer is B, industry. So only industry can reactivate it if it was the labeler code was inactivated, industry initiated inactivation using the same set ID. In closing, here's a summary of what we discussed. While everything we covered is relevant and important, the main takeaway is this: if you do not have to list any drugs with the FDA, you do not need to apply for a labeler code, since labeler codes that are not used by listing a drug product are automatically inactivated after 24 months. So it's important to apply for a labeler code only when you are ready to list a product. This approach will eliminate the need to navigate through the entire process that we just discussed today, saving you time and resources. Thank you all for your attention. If you have any questions or need further information, reach out to us at eDRLS@fda.hhs.gov.
Good morning again. For this section, I want to talk about updates mergers, and acquisitions. After participating in this session, attendees should be able to describe the timing requirements to update labeler code information, as well as describe the labeler code update requirements in merger and acquisition cases. Let's begin with labeler code information updates. When should labeler code information be updated? The information related to a labeler code should be updated within 30 calendar days after any change. Changes include, but are not limited to, the physical address, email, and phone number. These updates must be made per Part 207 of Federal Regulations. FDA uses the labeler code information for official communication regarding the company's listings. Aside from your legal responsibility, it is in the best interest of your company to send updates to labeler code information to FDA as soon as possible. If you do not receive communications from FDA due to old or outdated information, it does not relieve you from fulfilling requirements listed in the communication. Because of this, FDA recommends that you review your contact information at least annually. Next, let's talk about mergers and acquisitions. These can differ for each company based on business decisions and contractual agreements. A business decision is made at the time of a merger or acquisition to transfer or keep all or part of products. The current labeler code or any NDCs acquired, and such mergers or acquisitions can require updates to the registration, labeler code, and listing SPLs. For example, Company A and Company B are merging and they're changing their name to Company C. In addition, they have decided to keep Company A's labeler code. There are a few steps that should be taken. Here is what Company A, or C, should do. They must update Company A's labeler code and registration SPLs if applicable to include the new name, Company C, and any other updates such as contact name and information. Next, the drug listing must be updated even though they are using the same labeler code because the labeler name has changed. All drug listings associated with the company must be updated. Here is what Company B should do. They must discontinue all drug listings associated with Company B's labeler code. Next, they must relist all drug listings under Company C's labeler code and NDC. They must also inactivate Company B's labeler code and deregister its registration if applicable. In the first example, when a company acquires another company completely, the products can all be acquired. So Company A can decide if they keep Company B's labeler code or retire it. Company B will need to deregister, and they should update all their drug listings under Company A's labeler code or otherwise inactivate it if it is no longer in use. This, of course, is dependent on if all or some of Company B's products are also acquired. In the second example, Company A acquires the human prescription line for Company B. Company B will continue to manufacture human over-the-counter drugs. Therefore, the labeler code cannot be transferred. The human prescription drugs acquired must be delisted under Company B's labeler code and listed under Company A's labeler code. Now that we reviewed when to make updates and about mergers and acquisitions, let's see what we remember. The challenge question says, labeler code information including the name, physical address, email address, and other contact information must be updated. Is the answer A, within 60 days, B, within 90 days, C, within 30 days, or D, every June and December? Take a moment to consider which answer you think is correct. The answer is C, within 30 days. These updates must be made as listed in Part 207 of the Federal Regulations. We will answer any questions in our live Q&A segment at the end of this session. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful presentations. We'll now enter our break for 15 minutes. Please enjoy your break.